Denny here with QuestionPro. Today we have an exciting guest, but we'll get to that later. This episode is episode 14, and it is Understanding UX and Market Research, or for the snazzy title, it is UX Marks the Spot.
Woo, that's
nice. Look at that. Wow. Okay.
Yep. Hidden gems in research. So here we go. We'll start off with Crystal. Please introduce yourself.
Hey, everybody. I'm Crystal Weiss. I'm the Director of Marketing here at QuestionPro. I'm excited to talk about UX research. I'm excited to have somebody else that's not Dan here. And Dan, Dan, you did not realize we had started recording.
I know.
I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. All right, Dan, your turn.
All right. I'm Dan Fleetwood, President of Research and Insights here at QuestionPro, and excited to talk about UX. I feel like when you see good UX, you really appreciate it. And when you see bad UX, you really notice it. So I'm excited to chat about this today.
Fantastic. All right. And then Ruth, your turn.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ruth Sedner. I'm a UX designer at QuestionPro, and I'm excited to really dig into the important role that UX plays at designing good service.
All right. Well, thank you so much. So for this one, I was really hoping to kind of talk about UX and survey design, how UX matters in market research, all that good stuff. We could also maybe talk about how participant engagement through UX can lead to like better insights, all that good stuff. And let's go ahead and start with like the main question. So in your words, Ruth, why would you say UX matters in market research?
Well, I think it matters because
I'm an expert. This is great.
I know.
Well, if you want to get like the really good insights, you want the participants to be really engaged and get the really valuable insights and responses from them. So usually to get a really good UX in a survey is trying to emulate the responses you would get from a conversation, a human-to-human conversation. Mm-hmm. So trying to avoid having those surveys that look like you're filling your taxes. So try to really engage the participants to avoid drop-off and get them really engaged in the subject you're trying to find out.
Okay. And Dan, how would you say that kind of relates back to market research?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great point. And if you can make surveys kind of mimic the more, how people communicate in general, I think you'll get better responses. And I think people also like, completing surveys where they're well designed, not only from a survey flow standpoint, but also from a design element. And the more that you can make it easy, clean, fun, and all that stems from good UX. So I do think it's interesting, Ruth, that you brought up, like, how can we make it more conversational and more natural? Like, filling out surveys is not how people typically communicate. So the more that you can make it, a natural kind of day-to-day occurrence, or help try to mimic that while still collecting good data, I think is something that we all should strive for.
Okay. And so when you're designing surveys, what UX elements do you find to be the most challenging, Ruth? And do you have any strategies for making the survey taking experience just a little bit smoother or maybe more enticing?
Yeah, well, we have different strategies we apply to make the survey go smoother. Things like having auto advance or auto submit can make the survey go a lot faster and reduce the mental load for the respondents. So that's one strategy. And also, for example, the progress indicators can help tell you how much is left of the survey, and that reduces the load that you feel like, oh, it's taking too long. So you're getting closer to the end. And
but those will trick you sometimes, Ruth. They'll put you in a circle. You'll think you'll be so close to done, and then you answer one question differently, and it's like, oh, you want to start over here?
Mm-hmm. It's like those choose your own adventure books, Crystal. Where go to page 52,
I'm
go
not
to
trying
page
to
22.
choose my own adventure on a survey.
All right, fine.
Yeah, there's actually like a strategy where you can make the progress bar go faster at the beginning and then slower at the end, so you feel like you're going faster, but you're really just going at the same pace. And
I like that. That's awesome.
That's really cool.
Wait, does our survey software do that, Ruth?
I don't think so. I think we keep it. That's kind of a dark UX practice.
Ah.
We'll never tell, Crystal, okay?
Insider secrets.
Yeah.
Okay. And I feel like a lot of what happens with surveys is sometimes they are kind of being left to guess where to go next. For anyone that maybe isn't super familiar with UX, how can someone maybe make it so that from the back end and also the front end, it doesn't have that clunky flow? Do you have any maybe tips or tricks for that?
I think really understanding like what you're trying to get and making sure you're using clear and simple language, because sometimes for market researchers or for us who are designing the software, we understand some jargon and technical concepts, but for the general public it might be hard to comprehend, so trying to really make it simple to them so they can follow what you're trying to get, and not using like double negatives and things that might confuse people when they're making selections. I think that's really important. And when we design the software, the survey software for QuestionPro, we add some tools that the researchers can implement, like having the micro interactions, so the respondent experience is much smoother for the respondents.
I like how you talk about how we write the questions is actually part of the UX of the user experience. So often I think we forget that. Our market research team, shout out to them, they're so good, but they complicate questions. They're like, we rewrote it for clarity. And I'm like, you rewrote it for confusion.
I don't know. It's tough when you're writing survey questions because you need to write it like to the level of the audience, but then also you need to make sure that you can collect the information that you're after. So it's kind of an art form, I think. There's definitely a science to it, but it's also an art, I think, to write good survey questions. But I think, some of the things we talked about earlier.
Write survey questions at a 4th grade level.
Yeah.
Is that the industry standard, at least 4th grade level?
I mean, that's the US reading average.
Yeah, so you kind of mimic that.
So anyway, sorry, Dan, I cut you off.
No, I think that's fine. I don't know what to say after that. No, I think you got to know your audience, right? If it's Gen Pop, write it to like a 5th grade level. I think sometimes it's hard, like what is a 5th grade level? And I think that's kind of hard to gauge sometimes because it's been a long time since a lot of us were in elementary school. So, But,
that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
I've always wondered if there's like maybe like a subreddit or something where people can put in like the weirdest survey questions that they've been asked, where it's like a bajillion words long or something, like a whole paragraph in one question.
The Reddit deep dive into surveys and market research is pretty spicy. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. There's a lot of students on there that are like, that's how that makes sense.
I could see that.
Yeah. But even there's like X accounts too that like have, like bad survey questions and people upload it and you can check those out. It's pretty interesting. By the way, it's still weird saying X, not Twitter. So
I just hyphenate it now, X Twitter.
X Twitter. Okay. So now let's talk about some of the methods for UX testing in market research. So this is at least what I've been able to kind of put together. What are some ways that we can assess and enhance UX? Maybe like usability testing, A/B testing. What other kinds of methods are there?
Well, I think you can do usability testing, and you can also right now use AI to go through your survey and improve clarity of some of the questions and make sure your flow makes sense and you're really getting the insights that you're looking for. So I will go through that, and also do some accessibility testing. I think it's important to really get compliant with the accessibility standards. And yeah, I think also testing the order of the questions, because we have found that matters a lot. Like if you ask some sensitive questions at the beginning of a survey, you might get an increase in the drop-off rates. So I think it's important to really know how to order the questions you're going to ask.
Would you say maybe the important questions of what you actually want to know should be at the very front or maybe later in the survey? Or sprinkle them in or something?
Yeah, I think it depends on the survey, but I think like asking some filler questions at the beginning might be better to increase the engagement.
Okay.
What would you call like a filler question? Like a small talk question, like a get to know you, or do you still want it to be like, no?
So what do you do for work?
like, how do you feel about the latest movie you've been watching? Like, or does it have to be content to this survey that you're?
I think what I've seen from tests I've conducted, it's usually people like to know why are you asking them those questions? Like they want to know what subject you're trying to figure out. Like they want to know the context of the survey and not like being asked like a specific question out of the blue. Like,
yeah, I think to that point, I think in surveys too, you're gonna have some like questions you really want to know, and then maybe a little bit more in depth, but you have to lead up to it with kind of more softball type questions, still relevant information, but you don't want to come out of the gate with the hardest question, I think, in your survey to answer. You got to ease them into it a little bit.
Maybe it's just my thought process, but it sounds a little like a date.
Oh my gosh, we could do like a whole episode, like how surveys are like dating.
How surveys are like relationships, that'd be funny.
Check the boxes.
There's like, there's a screener in surveys, right? You screen people out, and then there's the body, and then there's the demographics, and then
you gotta learn how to communicate your findings. Like you have to communicate your feelings.
Yeah, there's a whole thing here,
I think that show Love is Blind is like a survey. Like you're just.
That's true.
That's true. That's very true. This is really great material for Valentine's Day episode.
It's like a qualitative survey, but it's like, what is it when you're like looking? Except you don't get to see through the mirror, like focus group.
Even focus groups get more access.
That's funny. That's a good TikTok.
I think it's a good one. Okay, so what kind of insights did you gather, and were there any surprises when you've done usability testing on a survey? Maybe like one that's kind of stuck with you when you've done those?
Yeah, I think like I said, like before, like I mentioned, the language that is used in questions. It's very important to keep it simple and familiar because it can be complex to understand. And so for questions that are more complex, like the matrix or ranking, it's important to keep the interface as intuitive as possible for the users.
Yes, what Ruth says. Because even when you work at a survey company, you still don't understand them.
Yeah.
Like, for example, like if 10 is the best and 1 is the worst, right? Like
Yes.
You want to make sure that's obvious because sometimes it's not. Okay. And then there was one that I did want to talk about, which was feedback loops. I think we touched on that a little bit earlier. But I think this is maybe in a different way. How can we do like follow-up surveys that kind of make it not feel as overwhelming when you're asking maybe the same kind of context? Like if you do maybe like a survey about a product and then you want to have like follow-up questions on it. Is there any tips for maybe kind of bridging that and making it a little bit more seamless?
I'm not sure. I think that's a question for Dan, who's the expert in research.
Maybe like consistent branding or like,
Yeah, I mean, definitely consistent branding. And like earlier this year, QuestionPro released visual mode. So you can have like, and that is really, I would say like elegant, beautiful, like survey design that can mimic a brand's look and feel. So I think anytime you have that and you can rely on those visual elements just to add, comfort and clarity, I think, definitely help out. I've seen also questions like the last question of the survey be hey, what would you improve about the survey? What did you like about the survey? And especially if you send that out to a group of market researchers, like you'll get some very specific feedback, and it's pretty interesting there. And just, in general, like people will give you, good qualitative data there just in an open-ended format.
Okay. So let's move on to improving participant engagement through UX.
Dan just touched on it. Focus mode.
Yeah, transitions. Well, yeah, maybe expand on that a little. Yeah. Maybe expand on that a little, Dan.
Yeah, I mean, there's different, from a design element, I think that's very important to make sure like you can have all the questions you want, but if the survey is not designed like visually appealing, people are going to get turned off by it. Like they want to see clean, modern survey design. And I think, Ruth and the team do a great job of that here at QuestionPro by looking at these things, not only taking into account, hey, is this going to be easy for a respondent, but also, Ruth, you touched on it earlier, and accessibility is a big factor, I think, in this as well. For things you're designing, you need to make sure they're accessible for everyone. So that's a key process of it too. You don't want to screen people out just because, they may have accessibility issues, and we need to be thinking about that. So there's a number of things there, and even, simple things that we know but we inherently overlook is how long is a survey? How many questions? Are you asking matrix after matrix? Is it how many open ends? What's the cognitive load on the participants? So there's a number of factors there that you really need to take into account.
I think, and you touched on that cognitive load or mental load, as the ladies say. And
so guys say cognitive, what ladies say is mental.
Mental load, like it's just more in our everyday language, I think now, is like, because women carry much a higher burden of mental load. It's there are studies on it. But as I know,
I don't doubt it.
I think the cognitive load is so interesting when you talk about like, oh, well, I'll just put it in a matrix over and over. And it's like survey respondents can just like figure we're smart. They know that it's 9 questions in a matrix. And then it's just 9 questions again.
Yeah.
It doesn't make it clear.
Yeah. And then even the data on the back end. Oh yeah, on a phone
obviously
too.
Making
the
mobile.
form factor.
Yeah, making mobile surveys useful. That is, I think, hugely important. Like most people assume, hey, I'm programming this on a desktop. And then they think, oh, it will be taken on a desktop. And that's not true.
No. I mean, I think, Ruth, you might know this, but 50 to 60% of our surveys are done on a mobile device now. It's like desktop is more the minority at this point. So when you're thinking about surveys, and make sure that you're thinking about it mobile first. I know at QuestionPro, all of our question types are mobile optimized, which really helps out because you as the survey designer don't have to go in and think about, hey, should I design this for mobile? We've taken that burden for you and done that. So that's a great point.
Yeah, like you mentioned, with the feature visual layout that we have on surveys, you can also customize all the design, and it's optimized for mobile too. So you can customize the images to look good on mobile too, and not just desktop. And I think it's also related to the accessibility testing, because sometimes accessibility doesn't have to be like you have a disability or you need a screen reader. It can also be like an environmental disability, like if you're answering the survey on your mobile device and outside on a sunny day, so you really need the survey to have good contrast so you can see the buttons and stuff. So, or if you have like an outdated device when you're accessing the survey. So it's a lot of things to consider, and not just like you said, Crystal, like considering the best case scenario, like you're on your desktop with a good connection.
That makes sense. So when it comes to that engagement, like we've been talking about, that's just kind of getting them at least through the door. What UX features have you found like particularly effective for like increasing participant engagement? And then do you think that there are any that are specifically or especially successful in surveys?
Well, going back to visual layout, I think it's one of the best features we have to increase engagement, because not only can you design like a beautiful survey, you can also customize the design for each of the questions in the survey, so you can adapt to the responses of the participant, and combining that with the survey logic, so you can go and generate like a custom design survey for each participant based on their responses. So you can create like an adaptive survey that goes with the flow of the responses. So it's like a customized experience for each person, and also incorporating that with the one per page question. So it's more like a conversational style of survey. I think that improves a lot of the engagement, and also mixing the text style questions with some more graphic type questions, like the rating, where you can incorporate the smileys or the emojis, stuff like that. You can break the monotony of the text-heavy surveys.
Yeah.
Did you hear her, Dan? She said conversational questions.
I like it. I know.
I'm
heard it,
going to
Crystal.
use
Thank
Ruth
you.
as my backup next time I write a good survey. And you're like, this isn't good.
You want better answers, ask better questions, right?
Boo!
I guess as a follow-up question, would you say maybe it all really depends on like catering to your audience? Like if you're maybe like a small, research firm and you're mainly just doing it for labs, you want to design it to be very like just kind of whatever the next question is, versus like if you're designing surveys for like, I don't know, like a clothing brand or something like that. Do you know if maybe that plays into it as well?
Definitely. I think you have to really design according to your audience and what you're trying to get. What's your goal?
That makes sense.
We talk about that all the time. And I feel like we could do that as the webinar every week, or like, do you know why you're writing this survey? And so many times I feel like there are people out there that are just like, well, my job is UX, so I field survey, or not UX, so, like research, so I field surveys. And you're like, okay, but like, why?
It's my KPI. I need to,
I know.
10 surveys a month.
But it definitely gets us back to our core values.
Yeah. Maybe like a pre-survey for doing a survey. What's the point of it? What are you trying to do?
Like an internal survey.
Yeah.
For your survey. What are your goals? What are you trying to find?
There you go.
Dan has thoughts. You have thoughts, Dan? I feel like you've opened your mouth like 3 times.
Yeah, I have some thoughts. I mean, I think it's great we've been talking about like on the UX side, like how to design good surveys, but we also just want to mention, there's also a lot of tools that QuestionPro has for UX researchers and doing UX research, like heat map. There's also MaxDiff, which I know a lot of UX researchers like to use when deciding the most or least important in tasks. There's live cast question types where you can capture that user feedback. There's also card sorting, which is great for like website development and UI UX research there. And then we can run like different types of studies that UX researchers like to do with different scoring and things. So a number of different tools there that not only you can use it to collect information about your product or service, but you can also use it to make, think about your surveys and how you want to make them better. So there's kind of, both sides of the docket there. There's some tools for you.
Ruth, what's your go-to question type when like surveying for UX design?
I think I like livecast because it's really good to see really even the expressions of the people, like how they feeling. It's really important to read on those nuances that you cannot read on like a multiple choice question.
That's fun.
It makes it more human, right? Don't you think it makes it more human, like just seeing that response too? I like that.
Yes.
I always try to fool the camera. Be like, I am happy.
It doesn't work. Good luck.
It's because the text analysis like picks up the keywords, and I'm like, but I mean, that's good to know. I think that a lot of people forget that you can do surveys on UX. I know we have like I feel like you either have power users or nobody. Like very few people like dabble in UX research for their product. It's either like you're all in on it or you don't think about it at all. Just thinking about our customers who do it. We have very few customers who are like, oh, I just want to do a few, like, I just want to see what's up. It's either like, no, we do it for like in-depth UX design, or like nobody does it.
That's for surveys in particular, right? When they do.
No, for like their product. So like if we have game developers who use it for, hey, do you want to have your button over here or your button over here? And or do you want what's another one?
For character development, they test like character designs.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So it's the UX of their product and etc. Or like websites do it a lot.
That makes sense. I feel like UX for video games is probably really intensive. Like, what color is great? What style is great? Oh my goodness. I can imagine all the questions. Okay. So let's talk about some of the future things in UX for market research. We're going into the new year. We always like to ask the golden question. What are your thoughts on AI and UX?
Well, I think it's a tool that we can use to enhance our workflow. It's definitely improving some of our processes, and we should not see it like a threat, more like something that's going to help us be more productive. And I think for design and service, it can be really good to use AI. Like we have QuestionPro AI, where it can help you design some of the questions for the survey. And I think for the new year, it's going to be really interesting to see how you can use it to analyze the responses and get deeper insights faster. And it's going to reduce the time you spend analyzing the results. It's definitely going to be something interesting to see.
Cool. I mean, yeah, there's been AI tools for anything and everything now. And I think a lot of people were probably more wary at the beginning of this year than they are now, I would say. Because I feel like everyone has had time to kind of adjust and adapt to it. But what do you think like the lasting impact will be for the implementation of like AI and stuff?
I think it will be definitely part of our workflow to really see surfacing the themes and patterns of the insights you're getting, and it will definitely be there for a long time. I think it's not going anywhere. And also for when you're designing a survey to test the flow, I think it's going to be interesting to see how we implement that in QuestionPro, and also the generation of the surveys. I know we're working on some new features for that, so it's going to be really interesting.
I think that I did listen to a podcast about how a journalist let AI like pick her life for
Really?
And essentially she like ran all the questions like what should I wear to work? And she essentially said it made her like a basic B, because it takes all the like, I don't know, like it takes all the personality out of everything. Right? It creates a culmination of like what is best practices. And that's where I would say I worry about UX design specifically, because Google's already like SEO practices are now, UX is a piece of that, because they want all the websites to look the same or like there is going to be a point where I think with AI, as with in a lot of things, you're going to have to take some pieces of it with a grain of salt, because you're going to lose the creativity and the innovation that comes with like, well, what if we just did something different? That would be okay. Or all the surveys, like everyone's survey is going to look the same. Like a friend sent me a survey the other day and she's like, oh, I know which survey platform built this. And then I looked and inspected it and I was like, wasn't us, but it looks like ours. And so like, yes, it's like cool if they all like, if everything's like standardized for accessibility and things like that. But at some point, I think AI definitely is going to make us basic.
Like all mushed together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's interesting though. The reporter or journalist that had that ChatGPT dictate her life for a week.
A
That's
week.
interesting.
Oh,
It was a really interesting story, and she's like, it essentially took all of my like not creativity, but all of the things that make her unique, like how she's like, I just dressed in J. Crew all week, like because that's what I just like put in that I was a journalist. Like, what should I wear to work?
What if it says, I'm a market researcher, what should I wear to work?
It would just be you, Dan. You would just.
What I'm wearing now.
Okay. Are you literally asking it?
I am. Yeah.
I think what you said, Crystal, is important because I recently saw like a talk by a chief designer officer, I think at Silo, and she was saying like AI is great like as a tool, but we still need all the brilliance of a human, like all the craft and the art like, that a human will bring. So I think it's important to combine like using AI to, but also analyze what the AI is telling you and really look deep into it and not just take it as it is.
Yeah.
But it's like enhancing our work and not doing our work for us.
Yes, enhancing who you are and not melding you into Dan.
Wow.
Lol.
If you don't want to be great, I guess don't do what I do.
Blue shirt today. You stepped outside of your normal.
You know, I tried, and according to ChatGPT, I'm appropriately dressed for a market researcher working from home. Okay.
There you go.
It's funny. It says if you do remote or hybrid work, wear a collared shirt, check, and bottom half, keep it comfortable but appropriate in case the camera captures more than expected. So.
Okay,
so check
has
both
jokes.
boxes there. So I'm good. You know? Yeah.
Okay. Well, on that note, I think that ends our episode there. But Ruth, do you have any last thoughts here for anyone? Maybe like you could share your favorite tool or just any last sage words of advice for maybe anyone that is looking to kind of figure out if a career in UX is great for them, any of that good stuff.
Well, yeah, definitely UX. It's a very interesting domain, and I think I really like it because it combines like the art part, like the left and the right of the brain, because you need to really be good at design and all the fine details, but also really think about the problem and the critical thinking, systems thinking, like solving problems. So it's great for combining those two aspects. And that's my favorite tool, of course, QuestionPro surveys.
There we go. I love it.
I like your very specific QuestionPro surveys, because is that the product you work on, not like the CX or the EX platform?
No, I actually don't work on surveys directly. I work for DigSite, which is also great for qualitative research and
asynchronous qualitative research.
There you go. See, look at you, Crystal.
Nice.
Fancy terminology is being thrown around. Okay. Well, thank you guys so much for being on this episode. For anyone that is watching until the end, you guys are the best. But yeah, thank you guys again. And I will hopefully see everyone on the next episode. All right.
Bye.